Welcome to the We Are One podcast. I'm Olivia, your host. Each week, I sit down with survivors from the Independent Fundamental Baptist Church to shine light on the abuse, the hypocrisy, and the truth that has existed behind closed doors. These stories matter. These voices matter. And together, we're breaking the silence. Before we begin, please note all individuals discussed in this podcast are presumed innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. Trigger warning. This episode may include descriptions of abuse, trauma, and other sensitive topics. Listener discretion is strongly advised. Now, let's get into today's episode. Welcome back to the We Are One podcast. I'm your host, Olivia. As I start off this series with Agape Boarding School, I am speaking with James. And if you Google him, he'll show up on a lot of headlines with Agape. He was a student there, and you may have seen him also on a documentary. I do know that.
Teen Torturing, yeah. On
you were in there for like a little snippet.
$1 billion industry. It's a cash machine.
The politicians are protecting the money.
These people are powerful. They're experts at covering up abuse.
With legislation. And so I'm excited to, deep dive and learn more about your experience at Agape and also just like where you are now. So hello, James.
Hello. Thank you for having me. This is exciting, nerve-wracking. I've done a few interviews over the years, or like stuff like this, but it's always nerve-wracking. I don't know why.
I get that because like, even though I am a podcast host and like I've had, 60 plus survivors on, it's like every episode I'm still nervous. Like yeah. If I see something, if I do something, so I totally get that. So I guess to start off, how old were you? Like what made you get sent to Agape?
So I was 15 when I got sent to Agape. It was the summer of '98. And I was a troubled kid. Like I was like misbehaving in school. Like I was, smoking weed, but doing drugs in everyone's eyes and doing a lot of really bad things. And I was on a bad trajectory in life. Like it was not looking good in general. So I understand why my family came to the conclusion that they did, and they gave me a few chances to turn my life around. Like, hey, we're going to drug test you in a few weeks. And if it comes back positive, they basically gave me a chance to not get sent to Agape, but I didn't believe them. And, I just woke up one morning, they're like, here, pee in a cup. And I was like, whatever, and next thing you know, that was, what is the final nail in the coffin for me. But yeah, so I would be lying to you if I was like saying I was a straight A student and I was doing, I was screwing up pretty bad in life as a teenager, I would say. So yeah, if that answers your question.
Yeah, no, I guess I can sympathize with you in the way of like acting out. I totally like took all my skeletons out as a teenager on my episode for the whole world to hear. So I can totally understand that in the way of being wild and getting into trouble. I, can say that myself. I'm thankful that my parents did not send me away. Looking back,
yeah,
they could have easily. But talk about when you found out, okay, this is legit. They are sending me away. Talk about those first moments being at the, on the grounds of Agape.
Well, I didn't believe them at first. Like I saw the paper, my aunt and uncle left the paperwork out for Agape and this and that. I thought it was all scare tactics, they're just trying to scare me. So like when they told me, hey, you tested positive for weed, like we gave you a chance, so we're sending you. They, some people get hired, have a transportation service take them. My aunt and uncle flew me out there. Like I went with them willingly. I just, once again, I just thought it was all scare tactics. So, I got to Missouri, landed there, landed, stayed the night at a hotel. Then the next day, it must have been a Saturday or something. I forget the exact date. I think it was July 11th. But anyways, they, my aunt and uncle drove me to this it wasn't even to the school. Like the students were doing a work detail off campus. And it was like, I think it was at the local golf course or something there in Stockton, Missouri. And, we pull up, me and my aunt and my uncle pull up, and there's like all these kids wearing like, the same color t-shirts, some of them are different colored, but most of them the same color, like just working and pulling like these reeds, these like bamboo reeds out of a lake, and like, pulling them out. And so we get out of the car, they introduce, my aunt and uncle introduced me to staff members, and, like I still don't understand what's fully going on. And then they yell to some student that's working, and they yell his name out, and he comes running up, and they just say, "Hey, this is James, take him and, put him to work." And, I was like, okay. So I just go with him, not thinking anything of it, like totally like thinking this is all scare tactics still. Thinking my family's just like trying to like scare me. So I was like, I'm not going to show them that I'm phased. So I just go with this guy and this other student, and he like tells me to start pulling stuff. So I'm getting in the mud, pulling stuff out, just working really hard, like whatever. And then I kind of like turn around to look at my family, like, kind of show them that I'm not phased by what they're doing. And they're in their car and they're already driving off. And I'm like, what the heck? Like, I'm like, whoa, whoa, whoa. And like all like the guys like kind of grab me, they're like, what are you doing? I'm like, my family, they're leaving. And they all laughed. They're like, you're here now. Like, you're not going anywhere. Like, what are you doing? You're here. And I was like, no, my family just left. Like, it was just like I didn't get what was going on, And then they finished the work detail, and like they sat me in the van to transport us back to the school, and like they were all I wasn't even thinking about running away, but they were like all about like watch him, make sure he's, keep an eye on him. They had me sit in the middle seat surrounded by students, so I couldn't do anything, and it was just so confusing what was happening. I just it didn't because my reality was shattered. Like my family left me there. I didn't think they were going to, and they did, and so it was that moment of like, oh crap.
Yeah, man,
Yeah,
that I've talked with so many survivors on camera and off that either their family has tricked them, they've been on airplanes with, handcuffs and shackles and meeting with all these like, you know, crazy people, I guess, in
yeah,
a way. And so I guess like with your perspective, you thought like, oh, they're just like trying to scare me, and then seeing them drive away, and you're like, wait, my family, I can't imagine no matter what age like that happening.
right,
And then also the way that they act like you were like this prisoner, like you can't move
right.
that, Uh,
Yeah.
talk about what are just some basic rules at Agape like that they had. I've seen a lot of the same patterns, definitely with like the military background of a lot of staff members or founders. And so I'm curious with Agape, what were some of the first like roles that were given to you?
Well, that boy, that the other student that he was considered my buddy, is what they called him, but he wasn't really a buddy. Like that, they're supposed to show you the ropes, but they have authority over you, so they can like hand out push-ups to you, and like if they think that you're not behaving the way that you should be, they can bring you to a staff member, and it's their word over yours. So, and you had to stay within, I think it was 5 feet, 3 or 5 feet of that student at all times. And like when you're walking in a direction, you have to be in front of them. You can't be next to them. You can't be behind them. You have to be in front of them. So he'd be like, "Hey, we're gonna get some water," and he would start walking. But if you're further than 5 feet from your buddy at any time, then all the other students had the authority to tackle you because it was like as though you're running away. You're inside of a dining hall. And like my buddy was they called it a power trip, where someone would let the power go to their head, the authority go to their head. So he would say, "Hey, we're going to go this direction," and I start walking that direction, and then he would just turn and walk the other way, and then he would just be like, "Yeah, my buddy's running away," and then all these kids are jumping up to go tackle me and stuff like that. So it was like it was a lot of that, like, but so they had so many rules there. There were so many things, like you couldn't talk to any student without a staff member around. Unless it was your buddy, you're able to, because they were trustworthy, you're able to talk to them. Um, I mean, you couldn't mention certain things, or certain words you couldn't say. Like my first night there, my buddy was giving me push-ups, because I think I talked to another. If I remember correctly, I was on my bunk bed and I talked to another student across from me, saying hi to him or something. You're not supposed to do that. So my buddy's like, "Do push-ups," and I was doing my push-ups, but I couldn't do them because I was a scrawny little 15-year-old, and my arms collapsed, and I was like, I can't. And then he's like brought me to the front of the dorm where the staff are at, and he's like, "Hey, my buddy's not won't do his push-ups." And I'm like, and I try to explain to the staff, I'm like, "No, I can't." And the guy's like, "Shut up! I didn't talk. Is anyone talking to you? Did anyone ask you anything?" And I'm like, "No." He's like told my buddy, he's like, "Leave him with me. I got him." And so and then the staff member was like, "Do push-ups." And I'm like, "Okay." So I get down, I do push-ups, and like my arms collapse. And I was like, "Oh gosh." And the staff like got in my face and started yelling at me. He's like, "Don't you ever say that here. Like that's using my God's, that's a euphemism for God or something like that, whatever it's called. Like it's using God's name in vain." And he's like, "Do more push-ups." And I'm like, "Okay." So I'm like, I go down again and I'm just exhausted. My arms collapse again. I was like, "Oh gosh, dang it." And I was like, "Oh, I'm so sorry." And this grown staff, like 20 something year old, just pounces on me, throws me on my back and starts punching me in the face and starts headbutting me and screaming at me. It's like that, "Don't use my God's name in vain. Don't use my God's name in vain," just punching me and hitting me. And it takes three staff to get him off me. And then like another staff member calls my buddy. He's like, "Hey, take him to the bathroom and get cleaned up." And I didn't understand what was going on still. And I go to the bathroom and they turn on the light and I just look and I'm just like bleeding, and I just like start crying and like washing the blood off my face. And I was just like, like what is going on here? And I, go back to my bed. I go to climb back up to my bed. My buddy's like, "Where are you going?" I'm like, "What?" He's like, "You still have push-ups to do." And so like the remainder of that first night was me just trying to do push-ups, but I couldn't, and my arms collapsing. And like every time I couldn't do my push-ups and I wasn't doing them, they do them in increments of 25. So you'd be like, "That's another 25 push-ups." I wasn't even doing the one, so I was just accumulating push-ups because I couldn't do push-ups. And that was like my first night at the school. Like it was just, yeah.
Yeah. That like I mean that's intense. Like I've seen those patterns within the facilities of them basically getting other students
Yep.
against each other
Yes.
and
Yeah.
creating these buddy programs where it sounds amazing, but in reality it's like sinister and it's also a way for them to have their hands clean. But it
Yes.
also sounds like within Agape, their staff members also did a lot of punishments too in the way of like hardcore stuff.
Hmm.
I've seen the video of that one viral of like the guy like picking him up and like chasing him around
Oh
and
yeah.
stuff like
I
that.
was there during that time. Yeah. That was the pastor of the church
Yes.
that was doing that.
And I just thought like even though I'm watching this, like trying to put myself in that environment immediately sets up any child to fail, no matter what. Like, you're not
Right.
here to help. You are causing more trauma, more hurt, more, I mean, the list could go on. And to know
Yeah.
that that man is a godly man,
Right.
even just like adds it makes Christianity look horrible.
Right.
So were you or was your family ever religious? Like, what made them pick Agape? Do you know?
Yeah, so I was raised Christian. They're not fundamental independent Baptist, but they were Christian. And it was from my understanding, they learned about agape through Focus on the Family.
Mm.
And so I don't know how they learned from them. I just know that's how they heard about it. And so, I mean, I grew up going to church and stuff like that. Eventually rebelled against that, obviously, in my later teen years. But even like when I got to Agape, they go through all your stuff when you get there. The strip search you and everything. And my family had given me a NIV Bible
Mm.
with like written in it a really nice note about "We love you, wish the best for you." And like they were going through it and they opened it up like, "Oh, this is like abomination. This is not the real word of God." And literally just threw it in the trash, like right there in front of me. And because of King James Bible is the only way to
James
go.
Version, yep.
Yep, yep. So but yeah, my family's religious, and so it was, which was part of the reason why I think they picked the school, is because of the religious aspect of it. So yeah.
Yeah. Can you talk about the religious aspect of Agape? Like what, you know, I've again with these facilities and like a lot of research, a lot of them again have the same tactics where it's like they blare preaching, you go to church so many times, this and this and that. So what was Agape like with like the religious aspect?
It was you had they say that it's not forced on you, but it was like you literally had to read your Bible every morning I think we had Bible reading every morning for 30 minutes. Every week there was, I think it was 5 Bible verses you had to memorize. and recite those before the end of the week or you get in trouble. We had chapel service, which was like church service, but just like a dumbed down version of it. Monday night, Tuesday night, Monday night, Tuesday night, Thursday night, and Saturday night. We had church service Wednesday night. We had Sunday school in the Sunday morning service, and Sunday evening service. So on Sunday, there were three services: Sunday school, Sunday morning service, Sunday evening service. And literally, Friday was the only time we had a break from having a service. And so, and they really pushed the religious aspect, because if you were an atheist or, hey, I'm Buddhist, I'm something else, and you stood with that, they treated you like crap. And then once like you accepted Jesus and you whatever went forward and did all that baptism stuff, whatever, then they would really shift the way they treated you. Now you're a child of God. They still treated you like crap, but it was weird. They really single you out. I remember one kid came in. He was like a vegetarian. I forget what religion he was, but he was really adamant about that and stuck with it. And they treated him so bad, and then eventually he converted, and like was saved. But yeah, so they say, because I was actually part of a court case where a mom was trying to prevent her son from going to Agape, but the dad was trying to send him there, and they brought me in as a witness to talk about the school. But then they also brought in a witness from Agape. It was a Charlie Faulkner, I forget his name, something like that. Some guy from Agape. He was like the head of student services or something. And they were asking him all these questions like, hey, is religion forced on the children there? And he's like, no. And I couldn't talk at the time. And I'm like, what? And I'm like, he's answering all these questions like under oath and like lying about it. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like this is what they tell the teachers, but I mean, not teachers, the parents, anyway, so it was forced there.
Yeah.
Anyways.
No, I, whether they're like IFB, most of them are IFB. I have noticed that. They have some type of religious, usually background within. I think it also because with Lester Roloff, and he kind of was like, I guess, the really big founder of the programs.
Yeah.
And definitely with like the government, like the church and state and all that, and where all these men think that they're, you know, can do whatever they want because Lester Roloff
Yeah.
mindset, and he got away with it back in the day. They had this mindset, and so then you have like the wackadoodles who are like think that it is biblical.
Right.
And so I've noticed that a lot of them are like that, and I knew that Agape relatively probably did just because of the pastor that video. And so I
Yeah.
kind of knew that. But
Yeah.
so talk about what was every day kind of the same in a way with like a schedule? Did you have like chores, or did they do any education there?
Well, one thing I want to mention too is because they had different dorms there, and there's like Kyle's dorm, but there was a roll-off dorm. So their names of the dorms were after these men of God,
Oh,
And so, anyways, but I know, but yeah, the days were they're pretty structured for the most part. Woke up in the morning. Everything was, yeah, you're timed at the amount of time you could be in the bathroom, the amount of time in the shower, the amount of time you go number two, like literally like yeah, I shared this on another podcast. You would have to, I think they give you 4 minutes. I think it was 4 minutes to go number two. And if you went over that time, you had to like come out of the bathroom to show that you weren't doing anything not proper in there, and go back in to finish your business again, and like showers, you were given, I believe it was 3 minutes to shower and 1 minute to dry off. And so, and like literally the lights on in the morning, like, so they just pitch dark, they would just turn the lights on and you would have to be out of bed at the foot of your bed, like standing at attention, like you're standing there in your underwear, like around a bunch of guys and stuff like that. And you have to stand at attention. The staff would walk up and down, make sure everyone's out of bed, or you'd be in a lot of trouble. And then, yeah, and then they'd have work detail in the morning as well as the Bible reading, like I was telling you about. So, and then it would be breakfast, and then, but pretty structured for the most part. Even the meals were pretty set, like what they would have each day for us and so forth. But yeah.
Did they ever use food as a punishment?
Oh yeah. Yeah. If you, um, yeah, it's like if you're really misbehaving, you could be on all salad diet. So they would just feed you like salad, and then they put you on what they call also like suicide status. If you say you're going to kill yourself, they put you on suicide status, or if you're really misbehaving, they put you on suicide status where you're wearing these oversized shoes that have like no tongues and no shoelaces in them. So you have to like kind of drag your feet as you walk, and you're in a bathrobe, sometimes with a shirt or yeah, no, it's bathrobe with a shirt and then your underwear underneath. And so the idea is that you would not run away and that you would not have anything on you to kill yourself with, and you're having to stand against a wall. So they would, and then they would feed you salad, for your meals, so it's yeah, it's interesting.
I just like I often wonder like where in the world do these people think it was okay or biblical for any of this? Like I
Right.
just I always say I'm not shocked, but then every time I talk with someone, I'm like, wow, there's another thing on the list. So an all
Yeah.
salad diet is added to the list. Because
Yeah.
I've heard like if you didn't eat your food or if you puked on it, you had to eat it, like stuff like that. So
Right. Yeah.
I just didn't know if they had used food as a punishment. What was the education like there? Did you guys have schooling?
Sorry, I laugh at your questions. I'm not laughing at you, but I'm laughing at because it's so ridiculous to say it out loud to another human being about like, about it because people it's just so far removed from a normal day to day. But yeah, they use the ACE program, the PACES, and I always explain it to people when they like my girlfriend, she's like super smart. She has like three different master's degrees, gone to college, like, like Johns Hopkins, UCLA, like Georgetown. It's like she's super smart. And then I tell her about my education. I'm like, my education was like, Johnny has an apple, and then God grew a tree with another apple on it. So now how many apples does Johnny have? And like he has two because God gave him a second apple, or something. It's so stupid. But
Yeah.
I think like,
Yeah, no, I mean, I went to public school. I will say that my parents never fell for the
oh
IFB Christian school.
yeah,
I think it's only because my parents also weren't raised in the IFB. They joined later on, as
oh okay.
so I think that does have a huge role in the way of like the way I was raised. But like,
Mm,
I don't know, I lived a double life. My family did. So, um,
yeah.
it was yeah. So with your uniforms, like you said, also, and I've seen pictures of like surface ones that like people have posted of like boys, whatever, being in like different color shirts. Was it like did the color of your shirt matter what status you were like in? Yep. Okay.
Yeah, 100%. And one more note on the education. I'm sorry to step back real quick, but also the better the staff liked you, the easier school was because they would just let you skip things. And the principal was also the pastor, the same guy that was kicking that kid in the video. He was also the pastor. I'm sorry, the principal of the school. And if he really liked you, he would make it so you only needed so many credits to graduate. But if he really didn't like you and they were trying to keep you there longer, they would actually give you more credits that you would need in order to graduate. Just make them up. It's like, no, he needs to finish algebra 2, he needs to do, English 3, and then he needs to do this. But then other people that they really like would be like, okay, well, you can graduate with just algebra. You can just graduate, and it was so crazy. Like it's just weird to think that they were able to get away with that.
Did they ever give like transcripts or anything like that, like where you like had any proof of that you graduated?
I mean, I have a diploma somewhere, but I've heard of a lot of students having issues when they go to college, and stuff like that. And they're like, the college is like, this isn't a legitimate school. You went to, yeah, you have a diploma. It says you graduated, but this isn't, it's not accredited or anything like that. It's not legitimate. So and even now kids are still trying to get their transcripts or anything. And it's just good luck. So anyways, but, yeah, it's really weird. But going back to what you're saying about the shirt colors, like yeah, they all meant something different. And if you're like a yellow shirt, when I first got there it was yellow, but then they switched it later to orange, you were a new kid. And if you saw someone with an orange shirt out and about by themselves, they're probably running away, doing something they're not supposed to. And so, but yeah, it was all color coded.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how long were you there at Agape?
I was there, so I got there for my sophomore year, and I was there till I graduated, and then I stayed on transitional staff for about 6 months. So
You were staff also at Agape.
Yeah, well, I say it's transitional staff. Like, so like when I was so brainwashed by the time I got done with school, and like I had a really bad relationship with my family because they basically took me there, and like you were allowed to visit from your family every 3 months, but I didn't see my family I was there for over 2 years before I saw my family. And so, and even in those 3.5 years I was there, I only saw my family that one time, and then they came for my graduation. So everyone else is getting these 3 month visits with their family. So I was like, Agape was all I knew, and I was so brainwashed. I literally thought the devil was outside of the walls of that school waiting for me to go out there so he can like somehow take control of my mind and like get me hooked on drugs and get me in prison, and like all the I was so like convinced, like it was weird. I was even afraid to go off campus as a staff, transitional staff, because you can go off campus. I was afraid to leave the school because driving down the road or something like that, or just, being in town and someone's playing rock music in their car. And they convinced us that that's how Satan takes control of your body. And so, yeah, so when I graduated, I stayed 6 months on staff, but after 6 months, I kept getting in trouble because I wasn't strict enough with the students. I was their friend. I was too buddy buddy with them. Like I kept being called into the office to be like them yelling at me, like you need to be harder on them. They shouldn't like you. And I was like, and after 6 months of that, I was like, I just can't. It's not in my nature to be that person. So yeah, I left to come back home to California. But yeah, so I think it was about 3.5, close to 4 years I was there. So
Wow.
yeah.
So talk a little bit about what did they make you do as a staff? Obviously, like you said, they yelled at you about like you being their friend or being too nice, but what were some, I guess, I don't know, what did you have to do as a transitional staff?
It was it was a lot of just watching the boys. Like you're basically like watching them, make sure they're where they need to be, doing what they need to do. But it was interesting because they used fear. Like fear was their thing. The students needed to fear you. They couldn't respect you. You couldn't love them, like be good to them. They needed to fear you, and they taught you that. And um, but it was just making sure that they're because I think between us and everyone else that listens to this, I think the staff are afraid of the students, afraid of an uprising, afraid of, if the students really got together and realized that the staff don't have the power over them, like they're afraid. So they got to keep them in a constant state of fear to control them. And so but yeah, so that was a big thing, is making sure that. And then also when I was on that transitional staff, that's around the time when they changed how they physically handled kids. Before it was throwing them around, hitting them and stuff like that. They implemented this new restraining system that was like supposed to be like so you can't get in trouble, like nothing could come back in. So it was all very like professionally done, and like there's a way of like I still remember it now. Like they taught us that if a student's squaring off with you and you think they're a threat, you would like grab one shoulder and push the other one and spin them around, bear hug them, drop your knee behind their knee, fall down and land on them, and then scream for help from the other staff members to help get them. And if the student was unruly, that's also when they implemented a restraining room. Because then before they used to do everything in front of all the students, so everyone else was afraid, then they wouldn't act up. Now it was that literally the staff would pick up the kids, and Alan Knoll knows this. That happened a lot to him when he was there, when I was there with him. And they would just each staff would grab an arm and carry the kid off to the restraining room, and they would just sit there in this enclosed room that no one could see what's going on, just throwing the kids around and to pressure points, holding them down. Like I never went in there because being a transitional staff, they didn't let you be part of that, but you knew what would happen, and the kids would come out in tears and bruised up and everything, and it was just like, yeah, I still remember one time when Alan like was being carried out of the room, and like he was just he was I remember him like having his fingernails and scratching the wrists of the staff member because just trying to fight back in whatever way he could, and just yeah, it's crazy. But anyways, yeah, the stuff that at the same time, there's not a lot of training to be staff. A lot of staff members were students that just graduated from the program, and now they're
Yeah.
overseeing students. There's no professional training. There's no psychological training to really care for them. It's so screwed up.
I had noticed when I was like researching about Agape too that they actually had police department like
Yeah.
security there that were filled like they basically were like people within the police department that actually worked there too, right? Or
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
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 So
And it's crazy because because they would tell us that you can't leave. Like if you run away from the school, the sheriff or they're just going to bring you back. So you go ahead and run away. Go ahead and run away and tell them everything we're doing here. No one's going to care. They're just going to bring you right back. And that would happen. Kids would run away and literally the cops would bring them back. And it was just like, and like they're abusing us or this and that. And they're like, yeah, sure they are. Everyone believed Agape over like the whole community thought Agape was like the saints, and they had the community convinced that we were these terrible kids that were just don't believe anything we say. So, but yeah, there's so much that goes into that. There's a whole thing that people did where they looked into all the different ties that Agape has with the local law enforcement, and some of the staff members would actually work in the prison there, help out there, and they would come and help out the school. And it's like, what? Like,
yeah,
yeah,
it's crazy because you would think vice versa. Like the police should listen to a child if they're saying they're abused versus this facility. But
yeah,
that was also with like Bethel. The whole town kind of knew about Herman Fountain in a way. They protected him. And I think it always goes back to like money. A lot of these places obviously get funded, whether the parents are paying or whatever, manipulation, members of churches,
mhm,
obviously. So a lot of it I think does come back to the money. Because in reality, if we all look at it, the number one thing we don't want is our money being messed with, no matter IFB or not, like just as a human to another human. That
right,
can stir some trouble. So if you're having this, billion-dollar industry and you're getting funded, the last thing, so you got to figure out how can I, throw a little cash here, you won't say nothing. Oh,
right.
$20. Yeah. So I think that a lot of people I've talked with, they always say, go back to where the money is because in the
Yeah.
funding. And also, I know that you were really big with like the legislation of, going and talking about your experience and getting, a bill signed. Can you talk a little bit about the process of how to shut a place down? What could people do out there if they are listening or, watching and they know of a place? What are some steps that we can do?
I mean, I'll be honest with you. I think Amanda and Alan, like they and Colton, I'm trying to think of any other names. They did. I'll be honest, they did a lot more than I did with it. I know my name was a part of it, and like you can't really tell, but like I have the bill signed on the wall over here, like the I think it was the governor or whoever the heck it was that signed it when we went to go do the signing of the bill. I have it like framed, and it was a cool moment to be a part of that. But I would say they definitely would know more. But I would say for the programs, now with social media, right? And like the information on the internet, it's just getting the messages out there, getting people's stories, getting it out there. Because I feel like that's what happened to Agape is like so much bad publicity happened, so many news stories to where it got to the point where if you're a parent trying to send your kid to Agape, you Google it, all these news stories about abuse pop up versus their narrative, right? Because if you talk to them, they'd be like, "Oh yeah, there's some students that are disgruntled. There's this, there's that." But now it gets to the point where it's all over the news, and like it's like, okay, wait a second here. And that I'm sure a lot of parents didn't send their kids to Agape. Well, I know that actually they suffered, as far as their attendance went and having students, and they had to eventually shut down. They say that's the reason why, but who knows what else was going on. But I would think that would be like telling their story. Like if as difficult as this is to do this, like I know I'm like all candid talking with you, but like when I started doing these initially, like it really like messed me up. Like it was really hard. And my girlfriend was like, "Why are you doing this? Like you are not the same. Like you could tell this is like tormenting you. Like why are you going and talking about this over and over again? Like let it be." And I'm like, "Well, because like I went on the Hammer podcast that was on, and then we got a bunch of other Gothic guys to go on, and like I feel like telling the story to someone like you and talking about it and having someone hear you out and believe you and understand you and even sympathize with you, it's so healing, and then it helps other people to come forward and stuff. But it is difficult doing this, like So going to do the legislation and stuff like that, it was I mean, it was hard, like I didn't want anyone thinking I was doing it for any money. So like I paid for my own flight, paid for my own hotel. Like people were offering to like reimburse me for stuff. I'm like, no, like I don't want anyone to come back to me and say you got paid to do the documentary. I nothing like, I think they bought me lunch while I was there, like filming it or something. But besides that, I'm like, no, like I don't want any money whatsoever because I don't want anyone to come back and be like, oh, he got paid to do that. So um and yeah, it was really taking a risk, like flying out to Missouri to meet up with a bunch of people like Alan Knoll, who, and like Amanda and like different people I've known, but didn't really know too much and just put my faith in them that they were doing something good with this whole thing. And just, yeah, sharing my story. And I think, my personal, opinion and experience, I would say like, um, as emotional and as hard as it is, like I feel like I was able to get through to some people and like really get my story like listened to because um I was calm, cool, collective, and respectful. Like and I know there's a lot of emotions like when you're talking about this stuff and people get worked up and they're screaming and they're cussing and going all crazy, but then the problem is when you're doing that, that is exactly what these programs say we are, these crazy kids with emotional issues, all screwed up. So when you're like blah, 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 doing all this crazy stuff, you're feeding right into their narrative about who we are as a survivor. That yeah, but it's so hard to put that away because I want to scream, I want to cry, I want to let it out, but just being calm, cool, and collective, and gathering my thoughts and speaking clearly about it, I feel like that also really helped. Where it was like, there's like people actually kind of like listened, and now Agape can't say no, he's a screw up, like it's like, well, no, I have my life together, I'm doing quite well, and I'm able to talk to you. What do you mean I'm a screw up? What are you talking about? So anyways, yeah, sorry, I went on a rant there, but
No, you're totally fine. And I think that was very important to say because, as a podcast host, a lot of people always like definitely in the IFB, they're like, you're out for revenge, you're this and that. If you want your dirty laundry, it's like, dude, I aired out all my stuff on my episode. So nobody else could do that. I did that myself.
smart, smart.
But like also it, at the end of the day, I'm like, I felt like I was called to this in a way. And so I always say to people, like, listen, if, do your best judgment with my podcast and my platform. I don't do this for money or fame. I am literally a nobody, 25-year-old girl from Indiana. So I always tell people that, but I want people to also understand too that, starting this and talking to survivors like you and so many other within these facilities, so many survivors have like found me and they're like, even if I don't want to be on, like just to know that someone else validated what I went through, or like there was the same, like I had a lady actually reach out and say, look, I was at the Lester Roll Off Rebecca Homegirl and I can tell you XYZ, what Barbara Ann said was 100%, just to
Yeah,
have that,
right,
like, okay, wow, like I don't know you and you don't know me, but like you were able to kind of heal in a way, and like, again, I'm not no therapist. I will never act like a therapist. I'm all for
right.
therapy, but just to have people and survivors like you to come on and like trust my platform, I'm very thankful for that. And I know that these conversations are really hard. I mean, heck, there's been times where I look back editing and I'm like, even though you can't tell, I'm like, I'm literally losing it behind because I'm like either really mad, I come off very passionate when I'm angry because I'm like,
Yeah,
oh, and
right.
times where I have said in my podcast episode, wait, hold on. And I've kept it in there because I want people to see the raw and real version of like,
Yeah,
wait, hold on, I'm about to get mad. I got to stop, and so when I hear these things, like I was a bad teenager. I'm open about that. Like I did stuff at 12 and 13 and 14 that nobody should be doing, right?
yeah,
I did it because I wanted attention, I wanted to be loved. My parents were going through a nasty divorce, blah blah blah. And I'm like,
right.
that could have been my life. My parents could have sent me away. And I could
Yeah,
have experienced what you did and what Sabrina did and all of and like Rachel and like all of them. But like the thing is, I'm glad I didn't because I feel like now I can sympathize with you as a bad teenager to one another. Like, wow. And my
Yeah.
heart is broken that you went through that. Like, nobody, I don't care. And this is just like another thing I'm tired of hearing about, like, oh, these kids were bad. Oh, they were in drugs. They were blah, blah. I don't care if you are a prostitute, if you are on drugs, if you are smoking and hitting a pipe every day. I don't care. Nobody deserves that. Definitely children. And,
Right.
in the legislation view of it, you can't say that you're for kids and then have no rules or bills or anything for these facilities. And I understand the argument between church and state. I totally get that. And like,
Right.
wanting government to come in and tell you XYZ, like we should have the freedom of that. But if you're going to run a facility like these places,
Yes.
Agape,
Right.
Circle, Bethel, I mean, all of Lester Roloff, and think that you're above the law, it's like, no, like karma's going to get you either way.
Yeah.
And, a lot of, like you said in the beginning of us talking, before we started this, you said some even staff members are, went to jail. Uh,
Yeah.
who, I guess my question is, who, like, what were the charges? Are they still in jail?
Oh man, that's so hard because yeah, there's the I know one of the staff members because a lot of them have branched off and started their own schools, right? They learned the system from Agape and they branched off and did their own thing. I'm trying to think here. There was a brother Jackson. I'm trying to think what his first name was. Brett Jackson, I think it was. And I think he started a school. I don't know if I know he got in trouble, but I'm not sure if he ended up in jail or not. But then there was another staff member, Brother Vanderkoy, Kelly Vanderkoy. He went I think to Kentucky or something, started his own school. He's the one that ran the boot camp at the boarding school at Agape. And so his job was to break your will when you got there. You come in with your attitude, chip on your shoulder, whatever, and it was just to humble you. And so he went and started his own school. And then there was something in the newspaper, I forget, within the last year and a half or something, where basically charges were brought against him, and it was like I believe it was his mugshot. And so I haven't really kept up with them, but or what's going on with it. But yeah, I'm trying to think what else, like anyone else.
Did the pastor or any, like, did he ever get in trouble? He died, right?
Frank, I don't know if he's dead or not. I've tried to like randomly look him up to see what happened to him. I know his wife died, and
Okay.
supposedly he remarried, but I don't know if he's passed away yet or not. But yeah, he never. I mean, this guy would put on boxing gloves and get into they call it the ring with like 12 and 13-year-old kids that were misbehaving and just beat the living crap out of them. That what you saw in that video was so mild. Like that's so
And
then.
I was like, oh my gosh, like, what the heck? And then,
Yeah.
I also could think too is like, I also thought, okay, that's probably not even the worst thing
No,
ever.
that was like so mild. Like that same kid, I mean, I've told the story before. Like that same kid, there's another time where your punishment is sometimes you have to stand with your nose against a basketball hoop or against a pole outside, so you're not moving, and he wouldn't keep his head on the pole. So they got duct tape and just duct taped his head to the pole. Like literally just, and that kid, he has issues. Like he had like some sort of behavioral something or another. Something just was a little bit off with him. So like imagine that someone who is mentally has something going on with them and they're not thinking properly, so they're not conforming to your program, and so he can't keep his head on the pole, looking off, and so they're like, screw it, hold your head, duct tape it to the pole, and just left him there. And he's like screaming, crying, like trying to get his head off the pole, and they're just like, it's so what you saw in that video. That's the crazy thing. That is where people saw that and they're like, oh my gosh, this is terrible. And us that's over there, we're like, that was mild. That was like little love taps and little whatever compared to what they were doing. Anyways, but it was good because and that's still online on YouTube somewhere. It's like Burton and the Kid, I think is the name of the video. If people want to look it up, it's still on there, and it's like, but yeah,
I probably will put the clip in, like, probably actually now.
Yeah.
So anyways, I think your camper's up at the horse cross. Yeah? You might be on it, I don't see him anymore.
But and things like that where there's so many documentaries so far, about the I hate saying the troubled teen industry because again, a lot of you guys, just wanted to be loved and stuff like that. And so I know that a lot of, speaking with survivors, they're like, I hate being labeled that. But what I'm trying to say is that industry, like there's been a lot of documentaries, obviously teen torture, and there was another one on Netflix too.
Oh my gosh, I know I'm blanking on the name. There was that one that was like it was like TV, it was like a show, but it was like based off of it too.
Yeah, and they had like hardcore proof. They had like went in there and like the
Yeah,
building. I just, oh my gosh, and now it's like driving me
I
nuts.
know, I know. It's gonna click
Yeah,
when we get
it's
off
like,
the
oh,
call.
it's like yeah, no, literally. But
Yeah,
when you see these things, and like even in that in one of the episodes, like they were showing like one of the guys like literally picking the student up and like slamming him on the ground, and like you
yeah,
can tell the guy or the kid is unconscious. Like you can literally tell that, and I'm just like watching this, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like wow. And
yeah.
I don't like comparing any trauma at all, like at all.
Right.
I don't agree with that at all, but I just
Yeah.
I always like think like wow. And then I also think too, like when I don't blame anyone that was in any of those environments if they are a certain way now in the future, you know what I mean?
Oh
Um,
my gosh.
if
Yeah.
they resulted into drugs to numb the pain, alcohol, I don't blame them because I cannot imagine like that's legit torture. Like that is
Yeah.
physical, spiritual abuse. I mean, emotional, all of every category of abuse could be that is
Yeah.
what these places are.
Yeah.
And and I know that, speaking with so many, definitely like the Bethel boys and stuff like that, and a lot of them are, thriving and they are kind of like what you said, James. I'm not what you say I am. I'm not
Right.
yeah, I did this and that, but I'm not, this person anymore. And every teenager makes mistakes. I always say, I'm like, or like, I don't know, I'll just say something. I'm like, you guys didn't invent that. Like,
Yeah.
teenagers, that I hate to say it, but that's what you do as a teenager in a way. You question
Yeah.
authority, you act out. And people who are like, no, whatever. Okay. And so where are you at now, James? And just kind of give an update because I know you haven't been on a platform for a while, so I'm curious to see where you are
Well,
now.
and I'm actually I want to be careful going into that first because I don't want people to think that it was all sunshine and lollipops when I got out of the boarding school because I did exactly what you talked about. I did go through that. I did go through a very dark phase and like my like right when I got out of the school to like literally up to maybe like 30 31 years old. Like my all my 20s were very like very bad. Like I was like on the verge of being homeless, no money, drugs, like it was bad. Like I was really bad. So where I'm at now, it's not like I got out of school and my life was just woohoo, like I'm free, like it took a while to get my life in order and to work through all that crap, like all that everything, all the PTSD, and I still deal with it. Still it's not gone. I still have school. I still have dreams that I'm back at the school. But like yeah, like now I'm living in Southern California. Like I got a good job in med tech. I'm a systems manager for I manage the sales system that the company uses, and I learned that like ten years ago. I started working with this system, and I've just kind of bounced around jobs, and each time like increasing my salary and moving up, and things are good. Me and my girlfriend, we travel a lot, and we just go on like one or two international trips a year, and just I don't drink, I don't do anything. I just, work and produce music and like live life and stuff. But yeah, but it was a long journey to get here. Like I just I would hate because I remember seeing people that came out of the school and I see like one or two guys that are doing good in life and I'm like, like, and when I was having a hard time thinking that like, wow, there's no way I can get there. Like there's no way I don't know how they did it, but there's no way. And like now seeing them on the other side and going through it, like it took a lot of work, took a lot of like revisiting the trauma and like reassign, like not to get any too in depth, but reassigning the meaning of it, like why I was sent to the school, why was I abused while I was there, and why my family just left me there, and then I had all these ideas of why they did it, and then now that I'm an adult looking back at it, I'm like, well, they had their own issues. Like I'm finding out now that they had their own issues in life as human beings that it had nothing to do with me. It's just they just made some really bad, and they thought I was living in a summer camp. They thought I was riding horses and like picking flowers and stuff like that every single day. They had no idea this abuse that was going on. So they thought that they were doing good by just leaving me there versus coming to visit me every 3 months like all the other parents were and stuff. So anyways, but I'd say life is good, I
How
guess.
is your relationship with your family now?
It's mostly good. I'd say it's mostly good, but then at the same time, I still was fighting so hard for approval from them. Like I was fighting like so hard. Not, I mean, they're nice, they're good people and stuff like that, but I was always like trying to reach out, like trying to like go visit them, trying to go see them, what's going on. And more recently, I just kind of like you know, not so much. And it's been nice not having that burden where I'm like trying so hard to be accepted by them. Because I'm sure they love me and they care for me, but I wanted them to view me and treat me a certain way and be like their son. But it's just my aunt and my uncle. It's like I'm their nephew. I'm not their kid. But I always wanted to cross over that threshold, and I was never going to get there as this unattainable goal that I was trying to get. And it was causing so much like heartache in my life. And then once I realized, I'm like, wait a second, like, why am I doing this to myself? And I stopped doing that. Like, it's been so much better. So I have a good relationship with them, I would say. But it's even that I'm 42 now, and I'm just like learning this stuff about my life, and like changing it. So, but it's been good with them, and I don't hold it against them. Um, the whole agape thing and stuff, it still hurts when I think about like what they did and how it happened. But yeah.
Yeah. Did you do any type of therapy else when you left Agape, or how did you work through a lot of the PTSD and trauma?
Sorry, I don't know if this is a good answer because I don't want to encourage people to do drugs, but I think I, I think what really helped for me was like my I forget how old I was, what year it was, but someone took me to my first rave,
Mm.
and my first rave, and I was there and drinking and hanging out, and noticed everyone was really happy and really a lot happier than I was drinking. And then my friends were like, "Hey, yeah, you want to take this?" And I tried ecstasy, and but a bit. It wasn't necessarily just the drugs; it was that environment because it's a non-judgmental. Back then, I don't know how it is now. Back then, they were talking about when I was like in my 20s. It was a very non-judgmental environment, and I was like, "Wait, this exists?" Like you love me for who I am. Like I have all these issues and all these flaws, and it's like you don't even you don't even care. You just love me for I exist because
Yeah.
I exist and I'm a human. I'm in front of you. You love me. That's it. You don't care what I'm wearing. You don't care. And I'm like, wow, this and being around that really opened my eyes. And I got out of that and I carried that with me. Where I was like, wow, like people can love me for who I am. I don't have to fight for their approval, fight and like if and like fall out of approval with someone, just because you're mad at you, I can make you mad. Now you don't love me anymore, which is like the what we were raised with. Now it's you love me unconditionally. Like, yeah, maybe I did something to make you mad, but you still love me. Like this is so weird. And so I think being around that and like learning that, like that helped me out a lot in life. And then like things progressively got better from there. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think that, I love that you said you weren't trying to encourage drugs, but it's just funny. But I think that is important because I feel like, at the end of the day, you do want to um hear I'm proud of you from your parents. You don't really want to make them, disappointed in life, definitely as a
Right.
teenager, in
Yeah.
your early 20s. And to have that pressure to be, this good, definitely for me, like good Christian and, this and that, and trying to live up to the expectations that you think are biblical and really they're just man-made. It's not biblical. And once you kind of just say, you know what, like you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't, and I'm gonna live my life. Um, and if you're with for the ride, you're with the ride. If not, like catch you
Yeah.
outside, I don't, and that's just kind of like been my mentality too. Like I've always been the outspoken one in a way. I'm like, if you like me, you like me. You don't, sleep good at night. You don't mess with my money. I don't really care. um, and that's just who I am. But I know a lot of people, I mean, heck, even my friends that grew up the same way that I did, they're like, I wish I had the balls to say that to my parents. I wish I had the balls to say that. I wish I could be on the podcast, but if I do, then I lose my whole family. I lose this, I lose that. And
Right.
at the end of the day, it's like, I lived a double life and it freaking sucks. It was horrible, definitely as a teenager, very confusing. And so
Yeah.
now to like I can be my authentic self. I can say, come as you are welcome in my house, no matter what race or whatever. I like any of it. We don't care. And to have
Yeah.
that and that freedom is worth every heartache and every trauma that I have experienced. I don't know that if everyone would say that in their experience, but I would never do anything like looking back. I would never go back and change anything
Yeah.
because of who I am today. Now, some people would say, no, I would never. If you might have said, oh, if I would have taken them serious, I would have probably smoked that pot and I would have passed that drug test. But it's like,
Right.
and I get that when some people are like, oh, I would have never smarted off to my mom. She would have never dropped me off at that home. So I get that. And I always say too, I don't blame anyone who has resentment. I know I would like
Right.
no. But I'm glad that you kind of briefly talked about that, like where you are now. I know like a lot of the listeners like hearing and kind of giving that hope. Like if someone is out there and they're in the beginning stages of healing and trying to figure out, XYZ, what you went through. And if someone out there is like, man, kind of like you said, you've seen a couple guys and they're like living the life and you're like, I'm never going to get there. And now look
Right.
at you. It just gives a lot of listeners hope. What
Yeah.
I do, I did this to a couple of the Buffalo boys and they were like, oh, okay. What would you say to the 15-year-old James now?
Oh. I see why they reacted that way. Because I'm trying, I've thought about that too. Like, what would yeah, actually, that's a good point. Like, what would I say to myself? You know, because I think what a student one time, 'cause I talk at high schools, like I go to the high schools and talk to the students sometimes. And I want to say one of the students asked me that one time, and I was like, man, that's a hard question because I know what it would be good to say, but also what would I hear? The 15-year-old me, what would I even listen to if an adult like me walked up, like, what's up, dude? Let me tell you something about life. I'd be like, F you, man. Who are you? Like, why are you talking to me? Like what could be said, that would like resonate, because it's um
It's a loaded question.
that's a hard one because I'm like well, simple words would be like "you are loved." I think that would be one of them. But then also like, if I could have a discussion with myself, I would teach myself how to, or a lot earlier in life, teach myself how to revisit trauma in my childhood with an adult mindset. So like when you think back to something that happened when you're a kid, typically you relive it as that child with those emotions. But once I learned to look back at things in my life with an adult mindset and a logical mindset and why that person did that to me, and it's like, wait a second, like my dad was like drug addict and like dropped me off of my grandparents' front porch when I was a kid because he was on drugs and couldn't take care of me. And like as a child growing up, I'm like, man, that just hurts so bad. I'm like, wait a second. Like now as an adult, I'm like, that was probably the best thing he could have done for me. He probably thought he was like making the best decision. But all my life, I thought, oh, he abandoned me. It's like, no, maybe he did it because he did love me and he knew that he couldn't give me the life that I deserved. So he gave me to my grandparents to take care of me. But my whole life, I was abandoned by we talked 20 years ago, I'd be like, oh, I was abandoned by my dad. I was this. So if I could have learned how to do that when I was 15, that would have dramatically changed so many of my issues that I was dealing with because it was because of this happened to me, I was acting out this way. Because of this happened, I was acting out this way. But reframing the things that happened, yeah. I'm curious. Has anyone asked you that question? If you can go back to your younger self, because I would have throw that back at you.
Yeah, no, and I'm glad you did. Nobody has ever asked me that. And I always say that, um, that the pain is temporary.
Yeah.
The I would tell myself, I probably, hmm, I would say that the pain is temporary first and foremost. Two, I am loved. The God that I thought was God is not God. And I never lost my faith, but I reconstructed my faith, and figured out exactly what scripture. I would tell myself that there's going to be a lot of people in your life that do you wrong, but just because someone does wrong to you, you shouldn't do wrong back. There I would actually probably say too to my younger self that not to have a relationship with my father would have probably saved me what 10 years, because my parents got divorced when I was like 15, 16, so about 10 years of a lot of issues. Now, not saying that it wouldn't have caused me issues. I probably would have more worse abandonment issues, but a lot
Right.
of it just got really bad when my parents divorced, like a lot of it. So I think I would say that. And I also would say too that I probably would be very proud of like who I am today. Like I've really made a good progress, and not to like sound selfish or toot my own horn, but like I would tell them like, you're going to do XYZ, and I probably would laugh at their face, kind of like you said. Like 15-year-old me hated authority. So
Yeah.
I would never tell them, I would never tell my younger self to change in that way, because I did meet a lot of teachers that really became really good advocates for me. They knew clearly like something was up, and they never lost hope on me. So I'm very thankful for that. But yeah, no, I would say that the pain is temporary. Blood family will hurt you faster than anyone on this planet. That would be another one. And maybe also probably spend more time with blood family in a way too. Um, with my parents' divorce, I've been vocal about it obviously on my platform, but not in like specific details. But I did miss a lot of family time growing up with like my cousins and stuff like that side, because in the IFB they teach you that like if your family or anything like that's not in the church, they're these horrible people. And so
Yep.
um because they're not in your church, they're the devil basically. And so I would say that too in a way, because I do feel like I do missed out. I don't have the like best memory of a lot of like family moments like with my grandparents, and they're both passed away. So I do things like that, but I did grow up really fast at 15. So yeah,
Yeah.
I'm glad that you asked that. Nobody's ever really flipped that question back on
Yeah.
me. Um
Well, and with what you said there at the end too, I want to echo the last thing you said there too, because as you were talking about family, like I agree with you on that, especially that last one too, is when you're younger, you don't realize um your relationships with family, and how important, I mean, how important that is, because especially people you care about. I remember with my grandma, how I treated her. And then when it was her last like year or two of life, I think back to, I a lot of regrets about how I was with the people that really did care about me and really did try to love me. And I wish I can go back and treat them better and spend better moments with them instead of being this rebellious, hateful person, like, so when man, yeah,
I
yeah,
told That's how I feel with my mom. I always look at her now. Again, I'm 25 years old, and I'm like, the hell that I caused. My parents had their own issues. Again, they were going through a divorce, and my dad is an addict. And so my mom lived in that double life of like trying to be the IFB woman. Like my marriage is fine.
yeah,
My husband did, spin my face, but it's okay, like all that. And then my rebellion and did not like authority. I added more stress on her. So I will say that is one thing I regret. But I will say that with like the type of mom that I had, and if anyone out there has had this type of mom, no matter what I've said to her, done XYZ, she always was there for me. And I'm thankful for that. I know that I'm very lucky in that department. So I do regret that. Like, I wish I could go back and tell my stubborn ass, horrible rebellion, like, my mom is not my enemy.
Right. Right.
I always tell her, I'm like, man, you were right about this person. You were right about this, and she's like, mm-hmm. So I always say, mom knows best, for most part, Um,
Yeah.
and so I do, again, echo off what you said.
Yeah.
I wish I could tell my, rebellion that my mom is not the enemy. But I also wish that too, like, therapy was presented to me. I think that would probably have helped me as a teenager. I think that definitely, because I was a teenager and the peak of like social media was just starting and stuff. And
Hmm.
now the generations that are coming in with social media access as little as a year old, you know what I mean? Like, it's
Yeah.
crazy. I always joke about like iPad kids and stuff like that,
Yeah.
and having the access or whatever. But I don't know, I just feel like we don't have the resources anymore, as much as we should for mental health. And
Right.
that's something, like you said, you were sent there in 98, and back then, and even like, yes, it's obviously gotten better as time, right? There's more psychiatrists, there's more therapy, but the
Yeah.
lack of funding for that, a lot of families, it's just hard. And so I
Yeah.
just wish that people would take that serious, definitely teenagers, instead of being told like, oh, you're just dramatic, oh, XYZ, so if you are a parent out there with teenagers and they're acting out or they're rebellious, don't send them to these facilities. They're obviously just wanting your money, and they're going to cause more harm, is what I've came to conclusion. Um,
Yeah.
and be active in healing for your teenager. Are you being the parent that they need? You
I
know?
mean, yeah, but I think also that some of these people, because I won't say any names or anything, details, but there's two people I know in life, two moms, two separate moms that are both having like hard times with their teenage daughters, and they're both at their wits' end to the point of they don't know what to do with them. Like they feel like they've done the best that they can do, and they're both good people. I know the moms in both situations, and they're good people, but both at their wits' end on what to do with their kid. And one of them actually went to a program, and
Hmm.
she's like, I don't want to ever send my daughter to one, but at the same time, I can see why my mom, because I don't know what else to do with her. And then the other one too, that she's just like, we don't know what to do with her. We've tried everything, like everything with her, and like she's just acting out, and it's like it's interesting, but because I don't know, it's weird being an adult now talking to parents that are in the situation that our parents were in when they're at their wits' end, and they're just like, you're trying to give them like, have you tried talking to them? Have you tried therapy? Have you tried telling them that they're loved? Have you tried? It's like, yes, I've done that. I've done that. Done that. They acted this way. That, and I'm like, well, shoot, like I don't know what else to tell you. Like I thought it was going to be easy being an adult to not send a child to one of these programs, but now if you're at your wits' end and your kid's like threatening to kill you, and like you're like, what do I do? And like all of a sudden this program's like, we'll give them Jesus if you give us $10,000 a month or whatever. It's like, okay, like thank you. Can you help me? So it's yeah.
And I will say, a lot of people, I do believe, go into these facilities, like parents wise, blind. Like,
Yeah.
they're taking them. And I do believe that anyone who is giving fraudulent like ways of like, oh, our facility is like this, like, they should be prosecuted because you're giving, you're a fraud. It's
Yeah.
not what it is. And so I guess also, I've asked people this too on my podcast, if you run into that area where someone comes to you and says, should I send my kid to XYZ? They've always said, research or whatever like that. But I don't know. Every
Yeah.
facility I've, what I mean, it's just not good in the way.
Right.
And it's just going to cause more issues. But I also understand too, like, I could have, because trust me, there was so much that I did, uh,
Yeah.
and I'm thankful, and there's times where people have came to me like, okay, you said on your podcast you were rebellious, you did this, whatever. And I'm like, hey, so did you tell your kid this? Did you do this punishment? Because all I'm thinking is, if that
Yeah.
happened to me, or if I would have been told like X, Y, Z, I probably would have calmed down. But every child's different. And
Yeah.
definitely nowadays, again with social media and stuff like that, it's just I honestly it just rapid more. Like it's just
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just not a thing. But social media also can be a good thing. Like this
Yeah,
platform.
right. You could find a community or something like that, and because I think if they did a program, this is just my opinion, if they did a program that didn't alienate the children from the parents and turn the child into the enemy or into the villain, because right now these programs they side with the parents. Yeah, your child's bad. Yeah, you're this, and they alienate the that relationship. If there's a program that somehow worked with the parent and the child to improve that relationship together instead of pulling the child away from that.
Yeah.
Like I don't know if that exists, but like that would I feel like that would have been good if someone worked with my aunt and uncles and worked with me together to improve instead of me just trying to put on a facade to that I was fixed so they would take me out of the program, which never worked. But like I was hoping that if I was good enough, they would take me home. And but it was all most of it was a facade. Um, but it was not. Yeah. Anyway, so that's really
Yeah,
interesting. Yeah.
no, I mean I get that. Yeah. And or like even also like I guess in my way too, like if I guess government could be involved, right? Like you have to be registered, you have to like XYZ, these people have to come are able to come in whenever they want, and like
Yeah.
actually have real therapists and psychiatrists and like
Yes.
and having
Right.
and don't humiliate the kids. Like there's no corporal punishment. Like
Right.
none of that stuff works. Like every
No.
person I know always says like they can get over XYZ. Like none of it worked for them. It made it worse.
Yeah.
Instead of helping someone calm down, no, you don't go hit someone. Like that's not, you
Right.
don't you shouldn't teach kids to hit. You know what I mean? Like it's just
Right.
like one of those things. And so, like you can't, like adults, if you go around hitting someone, you're gonna get locked up, you know?
Yeah.
So, like,
Yeah. I know they would say in Missouri there's you would get more trouble for hitting a dog in Missouri than you would a child. Yeah, I don't
yeah,
know if that's true or
like
not, but that's what they would say.
but yeah, I mean, like if you, and that's the thing is like, and I think, I know I've talked about this. I'm like, there's more strict rules and laws with animals versus kids. And I'm not
Yeah.
saying like XYZ, but I'm like, it's crazy. If
Right.
a guy down the road beats the crap out of his dog, he's going to jail for animal cruelty. But a kid can be locked up, be starved, whatever. And it's like,
Yep.
and it's like, what the heck? And none of
Right.
these places have to register. So I
Yeah.
know, like with even like Circle Pope Girls Ranch, they didn't even know it exists.
Right. Right.
Um, and so like these places, and they get away with these things because the first thing people always say is like, "Oh, why didn't you do this?" or "Why didn't you do that?" And it's like it's easy to throw the stone, but you've never been in that like position or facility, or like
Exactly.
people are like, "Oh, you turned 18, why can't you leave? Where are you gonna go?"
Right.
90% of the kids that were sent at these places were so brainwashed from the get-go that they didn't have anyone, they didn't have any family, they didn't love,
Right.
all that. So it's like, why would I leave?
Right.
If
Where am I
like,
going to go
where am I
to?
going to go? I don't
Yeah.
have any
Exactly.
money. And
Right.
so, people, can say, well, he was a staff member, he did this, whatever. It's like, okay, but where were you going to go? And I'm not saying like excuses anything, but like at the end
Right.
of the day, people, like, or like even girls like with Lester Roloff, like the Jubilee home, like they were older girls. Where were they going to go? They were sent from
Right.
the Rebecca home. They were there their whole pretty much life in a way. I
That's
mean,
all they knew.
yeah, the youngest girl there, I think, was 5. And it's like, if you think about that, you know what I mean? It's like crazy. And it's like, also, what is a 5-year old? Like, how is a 5 year
Right.
old so bad where you're getting sent to these places?
Usually it's not it's because I think there's a boy he was I think 10 that was at Agape and they literally knew it's just because the parents didn't want him. They didn't want to take care of him. So they just like put him there and he was just like he was going to probably be there. I don't know how many years he was there, if he was there till he graduated or whatever, but just it was just a known thing that the parents just didn't want him, but they had money and so they just put anyways, but it's yeah, I feel you. But it's so easy to judge and say I would never do that or I would treat it this way or like you said me staying on that transitional staff for like the 6 months whatever that I did that's held against me so much because I was on the other side, even though I was getting in trouble constantly because I wasn't being hard on the students. And like I had developed such good friendships with a lot of the students. Like I'm a hoarder. I keep everything. And like I went through my old box of Agape stuff from when I left, and I had all these letters from students that had written me letters. Like they were like literally like crying that I was leaving because like I wasn't one of the staffers that treated them bad, like, and so it's like, but even that was hard. There was one student, I won't say any names on here, but he was causing a lot of trouble for us, like causing a lot of drama online and stuff like that. And even with me, he was like, oh yeah, he was, James abused me when he was staff. He was abusing me. He did this, he did that. And I didn't, but, I was going through my stuff and I found a letter from him. Even he had written me a letter when I left. But I even second guessed it in my head though. I'm like, was I bad to him? Did I do anything to him? Like, was I, but then when I found the letter, I was like, oh wait, no, I know I didn't. He's just going through his own stuff, but it's, it is hard to like, yeah. Anyways, I kind of wish I didn't stay for the 6 months. It's good because I learned a lot that I could talk about,
Yeah.
but it sucks to say, yeah, I was technically staff for 6 months.
And also, like, I mean, I've talked with survivors too, where they're like, they made me beat up the girl. They made me restrain her, like, because again, most of it's like, I want to get my hands clean. So I'm going to make the girls against the girls, the boys
Yeah,
against the boys. And so I've talked with a lot of survivors where they're like, hey, I had a message, so and so and had to apologize for restraining her, and this and that, I just didn't want to happen to me. And so
yeah,
I see a lot of that in the way too of just talking with survivors and a lot of people, but that
yeah,
guilt and, trauma never, and so I know that
yeah,
you probably have thought like, oh, XYZ, like you said, but it's one of those
yeah,
things too that, you went through. So now being in your 40s, you can come out and say like, hey, like I seen both sides of it.
yeah,
you know that's your testimony, and you
yeah,
can help someone, whether that you like taking accountability, like, yeah, I should have never let that happen, you know what I mean, and like you give that healing to someone, or what you're saying now, and someone down the road went to Agape and they're like, wow, this happened in the 90s too, like, wow, I
right,
couldn't believe it, I thought it happened only in 2015,
yeah.
so it's just one of those things too, and I'm glad that you said that. I want to ask, what do you have like pictures and stuff of you like at Agape?
Oh yeah. Yeah, oh, yeah. I've held on to everything. So like I have all the photo albums from when I was there and like all that kind of stuff. So I can give you if you want, I have a Google photo drive. If you
Okay.
want, I give you access to that and it's like literally everything in there. So
Yeah, I would love it just for trailers. Obviously, I'll take this out of the episode, but
oh,
just
okay.
for trailers for Agape, because there's only like selective ones that I found, right? And like obviously people probably have posted and stuff like that, but it's kind of
Yeah.
hard with like certain social media pages being like private and stuff. So
Right. Yeah.
yeah, no, but I mean, I know you probably could probably talk for hours about all the experiences at Agape. When you got told like basically Agape is being closed, what was like probably the first like thing you probably thought?
I didn't believe it because they are manipulating and like and so I didn't believe it. There's no way that they're just going to close their doors, So when it like it was announced that they're shutting down, I was just like, okay, watch them, watch. And sure enough, they tried to open up again as Stone of Hope or Stone of Help or something like that. They're trying to on the same property, same everything. They're trying to open up as an. I was like, there we go. Like these people, they're like cockroaches, Like you think you killed one, but then all of a sudden five more pop up. So it was like just in my mind, I was like, let's just watch them, see where they go, see where keep an eye on them, where they're going to pop up. So, but then when they actually like said no because of financial issues, we're struggling, and then there's a lot of lawsuits that went against the school that these boys were winning like lots of money. And I know it's an insurance company that's paying out this whatever, but I know it hit them pretty hard. That was like the satisfaction of like, okay, we're making an impact here. Parents aren't sending their kids there. Their attendance is down. The number of students is down there. And then when it finally was like shut down, it was a good feeling. But still, it's good and bad because it's like it's nice that it's shut down, but that's just the school. Those humans that did the terrible things are still out there. and a lot of them did just go to other programs. So I'm not trying to be, not trying to just be doom and gloom here, but yay, good thing Agape shut down, but those people still existed, and they, like Brian Clemenson, they put him on the national child abuser list, right? They had him on initially, but then he got his name off there, and they were supposed to meet to get it back on there, and it just never happened, like it's like these people just keep slipping through, and like Julio, I forget his last name, but he's had a history of abusing kids at that school too, and he was in some court case where they took a kid from California that wasn't supposed to be taken, and so it was considered kidnapping, and he was the one that did it, but somehow he didn't get charged in the case. It's like these people just keep slipping through the cracks, and it's like I think the satisfaction is when you see them in the news that okay, they've been charged. Like that's the validation. Like the government, the law legal system has officially sided with us that they did wrong with what they did. But when
Yeah.
they keep slipping through and the government keeps letting them survive and open up a new school, I'll be honest with you, that's the part. So when a school closes down, it's great, but until you see their mugshot, and charges against them, then it's like, okay, like we're validated now. Like, yes, that they believed us. So yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, I get that too, definitely. Or like even, or just like in, general, like when someone did something criminal and they're like, man, you need to be locked up. Like, why are you walking around? Definitely,
Yeah.
I can totally understand that. Well, James, there's
I
been,
know.
I speaking with so many people off camera, even just about these facilities, I'm not shocked at any of this, obviously, and it's sad because again, it hurts Christianity when they use scripture or anything to try to justify their abuse, but also it's human to human. It's sad that kids, you guys all had to endure that no matter what you did. Nobody deserves that. But I am thankful that, you came on and talked a little bit about Agape and, your experience. So I guess to, in this episode, what is something you would like to say to anyone who maybe stumble upon this that worked at Agape, that would recognize you or, your face?
Oh man, that's a hard one. Um, I don't know, man. I don't know. That's a hard one because the guy that beat the crap out of me that first night there, I reached out to him on Facebook one time trying to just let him know that I forgive you, and he was like, I didn't do that. I'm like, yeah, you did. And like, so it's kind of trying to think about like what I would say to someone like, um, I would like to say haha, if it's people that are running the school, like haha, like, we made it, you used to thought we were a bunch of like loser nobodies that troubled kids that had no power and look like, we basically shut you down and like all this like, so like that I would like to say that. And then, yeah, I was, and then also for because they would attract good staff members. They would attract good people to work there that had good, so there were some staff and some family that moved there that were good people. I would encourage those people, if they're watching this, to come forward and tell their story from a staff's perspective. Like maybe reach out to you and say, hey, I was a staff member there. I didn't agree with what they did. My family is there, and like we ended up leaving because I know there's staff that did leave because they didn't agree. So I would encourage those people, because that is a different perspective, that people might actually like listen to, because a lot of them are really religious and really godly people that wanted to do some good, but they got lured in. So, yeah, I mean, I guess that would be it. But no hate and animosity or anything like that. That I don't want to have that in my life, so, no screaming and cussing at them.
And then inside we will, but
Yeah.
no, I totally get that. And again, when people stumble upon your episode or just any episode on my platform, I want, the mission to be as bold as possible, just to give survivors, a voice to be heard, seen, validated in a way. And I want people who are in that environment, to know that the grass is greener on the other side. It's
Yeah.
not biblical at all. and you can have a life outside of it. It's very hard, but James and myself and so many other survivors are living proof of that.
Yeah.
It's a hard and rocky road because you literally probably will lose anything and everything, but it is rewarding in the end because you'll have peace and freedoms. And you don't really get freedom in that environment. You get told what to do, what to say,
Well,
all that. So it's very,
yeah.
very controlling, manipulation, and fear. There's no self thinking. It's you think this way because I told you so. And so it is freeing. And just to be able to have that freedom is worth everything to me. So
Yeah. And
I,
I
yeah.
agree with you. Yeah. 100%. Sorry. Yes.
Yeah,
100%.
no,
Well said.
yeah, it's one of those things where I'm like, it's very, very hard. Like I'm never gonna sugarcoat like life is hard in general. Our economy is shit and just everything that's happening. But at the end of the day, the grass is greener. It just might take 5 years, but
Yeah.
mean, I don't know. I got tired of living the double life and I got out young, so I'm thankful for that. And I know that there's a lot of older generations that wish they, X, Y, Z, and so it's never too late. It's never too late to take accountability. It's never too late to apologize and make amends. Life is short, and so I am thankful for you, James, to come on today's episode and just kind of talk about your experience with Agape and again, I know that you've been on other platforms. So if you're out there and you want more in depth, I know some platforms go very, very deep with details. So I know it's probably out there.
Everyone's different, and I was going to say, well, two things. One is I appreciate your format. I like it. It is you have your questions to cover and like the format, the way you do it. I do like it because you touch on it, but at the same time you don't dive too deep because I feel like sometimes when you dive deep, sometimes it's good because people want to know the details of it, but one for the person talking about it, they're really digging into their thoughts and emotions regarding it. Sometimes it's tough. And also sometimes people listening, I'm sure they can get lost. But and one of the things as you're talking about like people getting out of the IFB and getting out of that, and losing all the people and losing all, it's so interesting because isn't like agape, isn't that the unconditional love? Like, isn't that when like, so if all of a sudden these people that love and care for you, you decide to leave IFB, that shouldn't change how they love me. It's kind of like the ravers, right? Like I was talking about earlier, like not to say they're religious or anything, I don't know, but like just saying like that, no matter what, like you could be gay, you could be straight, you could be whatever, and they loved and cared for you. It's almost like that's what should be in religion. But if you're afraid of leaving the IFB because you're going to lose these people, that's conditional. They don't, like it's like they're going to shun you and they're going to, you know, abandon you because you chose something different. Like it's a conditional love. That's not godly. That's not Christ-like. That's not, I'm not religious, but I know better than that coming from the Christian world. Like, so I would question those relationships. If I was a person afraid of losing a relationship because I'm going to get out of the IFB or change something, that's probably not a real true. Anyway, stop. Sorry, that's my two
No,
cents.
it's 100%. It's very conditional. If you do my rules, I say the IFB is a cult, 100%. Religion is a cult, I believe, because you have these set of I'm still a Christian in a way, right? Like I go to a non-denomination church, but there is nothing where like I go to church, I listen to the preacher, yep, sure, yep, and I leave. There's no like I can go in jeans and I don't have to like worry about if like what I mean. Like there's just no
Right.
that's not what it says. Like I always say to people, show me where it says KJV is the only form. Show me where it says this. You know what I mean? It's not. It's taken out of context for fear and manipulation. And I always say, like, bravo to all of like Jack Hyles and all of them who created this, I guess, empire in a way, because what you're doing is you're just ruining Christianity. Like for you look crazy. It's a cult.
Yeah. Right.
So I always say that too. Like if you can't go to your pastor because you already know what he's going to say, if it's his way or no way, that's an immediate red flag.
Right.
If you can't think for yourself, if you cannot stand up for yourself, and I get when people are like, "Oh, I'm a people pleaser," blah blah. Okay, sure, so was I. But when it becomes your whole life, like that's an issue. That's spiritual abuse. And that's something I've talked about numerous times. So no, I totally get that. And I've talked about it so much. And I mean, I get very passionate about it. So
Yeah, no, but thank all that being said, thank you for having me. I know it's super late for you over there, but like thank you for having me on and like giving me an opportunity, even being like because I know it takes a lot probably to reach out to people to ask them like that's like it's such a leap of faith like because you never know how someone's going to respond or what you're going to get back. So like thank you for like taking the opportunity and um you know there's a Agape boarding school like group that I'm on Facebook. So if it's cool with you, I could just post your, hey,
yeah.
I went on this podcast. If you want to like reach out, is that okay?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, you can just I'll message you the email like if they like want to do inquiries, like they'll have my email just because I'll see it faster than Messenger. But yeah, totally. But yeah,
Okay,
no, I appreciate, you coming on and stay look forward to the next episode to continue with the Agape school.
definitely.